Have you ever wondered how your sales performance compares against your competitors and peers? The B2B Sales Benchmark Report provides the definitive guide to what success looks like in 2021. See how you compare in terms of win rate, sales cycle, average deal value, relationships, and engagement. You can see the results and get the full report at ebster.com/B2B-sales-benchmarks. This is Sales Ops Demystified, the #1 most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales operations onto the show to deconstruct the why, what, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Ebster, the leading customer engagement platform for Salesforce. Hello and welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. We are joined by Brandon Roberts, who two very interesting things. First, a professional baseball player in his 20s. But perhaps more interesting even than that for this audience is the fact that Brandon has come all the way from being an SDR up through management and now shifting into operations for MindBody over the past 8 years. So we're going to have someone who has that experience coming right the way through the sales system. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
So can we kick off about understanding how you managed to get into sales operations from the SDR and then the management kind of flow?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I actually started as a part-time SDR back in the day, just cold calling, making thousands of calls. I worked my way up through sales, being an individual contributor, account executive, sales rep, then got into management. And then I spent a couple different stints managing an SDR team and then managing an account executive team. And that's really where I started realizing that my analytical strengths were what were setting me apart and making me successful as a sales manager. And so I started really getting a reputation for that at that time. Then I got the opportunity to run the SDR organization, director of SDR there. And that's, in my opinion, naturally some very operational minded people need to be in that role, because you're looking at the pipeline from the top of the pipeline down, and process and systems are big. And so that naturally led me to a little bit of a slow roll into running operations. I was doing both a little bit at a period of time, and then ultimately exclusively sales operations. So that's how it happened for me.
Got it. So as you were in that director manager role, you saw that your strengths were more analytical, and therefore this role could potentially be better suited to those strengths.
Exactly. Yeah. So I found myself thinking, how do we hit our revenue targets sustainably? How do we put in processes and systems and just repeatable, scalable methods to where we can, hit the number month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. And that's really where the SVP at the time, wanted to put me over sales operations because of those strengths.
And was there a department prior to you moving over, or were you the first person?
Yeah, but it definitely evolved. I think back to when I started, and it was basically a Salesforce admin, right, back in 2011 or whatever year that was. And, it grew and it was very light. But at the time, we did have a VP of Sales Ops. And so, I was reporting to him when I was the director of SDRs at the time. And then it was just a natural transition.
Got it. And right now, approximately how many reps do we have versus people in that operations team?
Probably, are you talking sales ops or enablement or anything like that?
Ops and enablement.
I would probably say it's plus or minus 50 to a couple hundred.
Cool. In ops and enablement.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then approximately how many reps are you guys supporting?
A couple hundred.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then now moving on to the current tech stack that you guys are using.
Yeah, so we have Salesforce in-house. We've had that in-house for quite a long time, obviously, and that's our powerhouse CRM. We use Outreach, and we use NC Squared for distribution, Eloqua for top of the pipeline. So we've used a couple different tools for data augmentation. We've tested quite a few of those, from Radius to Zoom Info. So those are definitely important.
Cool. And then is your team, the sales ops team, responsible for ensuring the data quality inside Salesforce?
Yeah, we do that quite often. We do one-off merges. We have duplicates in our system because of the nature of our prospects are pretty small businesses. So we've got a team that does that. We've got a team that does mass merges and data quality. And really the most important thing, in my opinion, is putting the ownership on the sales reps themselves, because they have their territories, they have their funnels, and really the more we can put ownership on them to empower them to own their data and own their funnel and keep things clean for themselves, the better off we're going to be. That's sometimes more effective than running mass data enhancements.
But how do you, I totally agree, but how do you actually get reps to own the data quality?
Yeah, part by helping them understand how it benefits them. And so really the longer they have their territory or their funnel where they understand that that's their source of income and they take pride in that, that's one way. And then the other way is simply to require certain fields at certain stages of lead statuses and opportunity stages, and get a little bit more rigorous on what we're putting in the system. And if they want to move something down the pipeline or to a different lead stage, we require just different pieces of information along the way.
Got it. So constraining that data input, so they have to kind of comply by their rules if they're going to push someone through the process.
Yeah, and you run the risk of somebody putting in fake data at that point. But realistically, we just have to, that's accountability and culture of the sales team of making sure that they're doing what's right for the business and putting in the information at certain times. And then we partner with them to make sure that we're requiring the right things at the right time. So at this point in a lead status or in a sales stage, you should have this information if you're following our sales process. Yes, okay, great. You have that partnership and then you have that buy-in. So it makes sense. If we were requiring something completely ridiculous at the top of the pipeline, then we would probably be more inclined to have some more fake data. So it's really a partnership, and everything we do in Salesforce is partnership with sales leadership.
Nice. Is there anything else you guys are doing to kind of get salespeople more bought into the stuff that you want them to do? Like you mentioned here, make them understand how they win by doing this, how they make more commission. But is there anything else that you do, like any gamification or any other strategies to form that partnership and to get them to do the things they need to do?
Yeah, I think it's really mainly just the two big things. So the why for the company, first and foremost. I mean, really, if we have a great culture and we've got great people in the seats, they understand that their job is to support the business and make the business as successful as possible. So first and foremost, understanding why the business needs it. And then number two is why they need it. So why it actually helps them and their pocketbook and help them manage their pipeline or generate more income. And so I would say it's twofold for those, and it's why and why. Why is it helping the business, and why is it helping ourselves?
Got it. And then moving back to probably now and when you were running the whole SDR function, do you have any tips for onboarding SDRs? I assume you went through a pretty high volume of SDRs there. What changes did you make to the onboarding process that had a big impact?
Yeah, you definitely need to make sure you have product in there. I think a lot of organizations think that they want to avoid product so that they're not overqualifying. But product, sales acumen, and then systems is typically underrepresented in onboarding programs. There's probably minimal systems update, and then they basically get the rest of the training from tribal knowledge with the rest of the group. So having a real focused effort on how to use Salesforce, how to use other tools, how to follow the process, what to do when, where to get data, those types of things is such a massive part of their role now, especially this day and age, that needs to be a significant portion of onboarding them so that they can be successful.
What did you expect for the ramp time on a new SDR?
Yeah, for SDRs, we expect it to be pretty quick. It's just a couple of months. We have a transactional situation. It's not a majority. A small majority of our business is enterprise, and so a lot of it's transactional. So they can get up to speed pretty quickly. Just a couple of months, and they can be getting some demos in front of the account executives there. And a majority of their bonus and commission is on demos booked and assigned. And so really, we're not waiting for that full sales cycle for those SDRs. So we want to get them ramped pretty quickly.
Is aware. What's the approximate ACV? Just a range, just so we know what we're dealing with.
Well, again, it ranges so drastically between SMB, mid market, and enterprise. But the SMB side is mainly what I'm kind of speaking of right now, and that's around the 5,000.
Got it. Cool. Okay. Is there anything that you guys are doing right now to make SDRs and AEs more productive?
Yeah, so what we like to focus on is enhancing their selling activities. So we look at non-core activities and selling activities, and we really want to optimize the amount of time they can spend on selling activities, which are calls, demos, following up with prospects, emails, etc. And so the way we do that is to try to minimize the amount of time that they have to spend on those internal non-core selling activities by automating systems, by putting some streamlined processes in place, by augmenting data as much as possible. And we analyze our department ever so often, where we say, how much time are they spending on these tasks that are bogging them down, and then how much time are they spending on the phone, calling, emailing. And so, we measure that every once in a while, and then we basically put our initiatives together and say, okay, how can we reduce these internal non-core selling activities as much as we possibly can? And by reducing those as much as we possibly can, we're essentially freeing up our sales reps to do not only what's more valuable for the company, but what they like to do as well, and what's going to make their job satisfaction go up, because they get to do things that they love doing. So that's one of the main things that we do. In sales operations, we're focused on the efficiency side of the equation. Efficiency and effectiveness really drives sales productivity. So any way we can drive efficiencies in the motion and make it faster for them to move is going to drive productivity for us.
Can you share one small thing you've tweaked that has boosted enhancing selling activity?
Yeah. So data augmentation is definitely one example of that. And so a couple of years ago, even we ran the analysis, and we found that was one of our bigger opportunities. Is reps were spending a lot of time finding more information off of websites and trying to gather qualifying information on the prospects. And so that was one area where we were able to plug in certain tools and get that data ahead of time, and that reduced the amount of time that they had to spend sourcing and researching and finding that information, and freed them up to make more calls.
Got it. Can we quickly talk about the forecasting process? Does that fit under you? Are you responsible for producing the forecast?
Yeah, it's a partnership, right? Because sales leadership is ultimately accountable for that. So we create the process for it, and we create the structure. and then the sales leadership on a weekly basis just needs to update their forecast and make sure that they're within a decent variance, every single month, and they're understanding what the pipeline looks like, et cetera. So I would call that, I wouldn't say, we own forecasting, but we definitely enable it, and we set the structure up for it, and we make sure the system can accommodate that, and we manage it. And then the sales leadership is ultimately accountable for that and telling us what they're going to do and what their sellers are going to do, and then obviously ultimately hitting that.
Got it. So do you have like a weekly meeting where you would bring the numbers, and then the sales managers and leaders would come in and be like, actually, no, I think that's a bit high. We're probably not going to close that one. Is that the process?
Yep, that's absolutely right. So there's a couple different methods for it, and we pull the actuals. We say, okay, here's where we're at, and this is where we would be trending. But what are you seeing on the floor? What are you seeing from talking to your sellers, from your sellers, forecast meetings rolled up to you? What fluctuations in seasonality are we not seeing, or whatever the case may be? What big deals are coming through? You name it. So a little bit of science on our side to see, what actuals have come in already and what we see, and then a little bit of art on their side based on what they know of over the last couple of years, what they've experienced, and the conversations they're having with account executives, managers, and their prospects.
Got it. And just is kind of out of my interest. Say a sales manager who has 5 AEs and 20 SDRs, how many ops is he going to have to try and review in the week to say, yes, that's accurate or not, approximately? Like, because to me, there could be like 100 opportunities, right, at this price point. And so then if I've never been a sales manager, but would I then go and sit with every one of my reps to understand every opportunity, or do you know how they do that?
Yeah, no, you're spot on there. And in more transactional, it's not going to be a review of every single one of those. So it's a mix of reviewing those top ones that we think are going to close, that are getting closer in the pipeline, and then a mix of historical trends and what we're expecting to come in through the marketing funnel and our SDR, et cetera. So it's really a balance of both, and it's a balancing act, forecasting, especially when it gets a little bit more transactional.
Got it. And then you mentioned the marketing a little bit on that. Do you have separate kind of SDR teams that take just inbound stuff versus separate for outbound?
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on that over the last couple of years. We've gone full outbound, we've gone full inbound, we've gone mix, we've gone different types of leads and stuff like that. So we do have a focused inbound unit that focuses on conversion rates of those, and then an outbound team that's supporting the account executive in the field in their territories and their funnels.
Got it. And is the commission structure the same for the inbound versus the outbound?
Well, yes, it's approximately the same, but obviously the targets are much different.
Got it. Awesome. And then final kind of sales ops question is KPIs that we're tracking, or no, actually I'll reverse this. Through your 8 years at MindBody, which has been the most insightful sales related KPI that you've used?
Yeah, I would say my favorite KPI is really a lagging KPI, and it's the number of it's the percentage of reps that are hitting quota. And the reason I like that one is because we like to keep a pulse on the culture of the sales department, whether or not it's healthy or not healthy, depending on how many people are hitting their quota and how many people are not hitting their quota, and whether or not they're feeling successful and they're celebrating and hitting the gong all day long, or if the targets are too high. And so that's one that really gives me a measurement of not only how effective our sellers are, but how happy they are. Because you really want a culture that can win and wins often and is really happy and high fives each other all day long. So that's my favorite, just to keep a pulse on that, because I want to make sure everybody's successful, everybody's winning, everybody's doing a good job.
Yeah, that's a really interesting answer, because we've never had anybody come in and say, I like this metric, because it ensures that I know that the culture and that people are having fun and that people are enjoying their job. If normally people are answering and just saying, I like this metric that tells me if they're performing or not, right? So that's a really interesting angle. Final question, who has kind of given you the most knowledge throughout your 8-year career at MindBody?
Yeah, I would say, coming from individual contributor sales to sales management and transitioning over to ops, it was a big competency jump for me to learn everything ops as much as I possibly could. Obviously, I had a lot of it from sales management. But there's really two that stick out. My current boss right now, Jeff Wadham, he's an ops master. He's got tons of years of experience in sales ops, revenue ops, and so he's a great mentor for me, and I'm lucky to be able to learn from him. And then prior to him, Hillary Headley, she's moved on. She's the head of ops at Zoom, but she helped increase my competencies and motivate me and helped teach me everything that she possibly could about sales ops and helped me get where I am. So I would say those two. I'm super lucky to have been worked for both of them, and it's been exciting. It's been fun, and I've just learned a ton.
Fantastic. Now, let me tell you what I've learned from this interview, or the things I picked out. You said this right at the start, and it's quite interesting. In the revenue targets, you don't just need to hit them, but they need to be sustainable. And so I thought that was quite interesting. Understand, like getting reps to own their own data quality, and you do that by explaining that actually, yes, this is good for the company as well as yourself. Mm-hmm. Enhancing selling activity is pretty obvious, but not everyone comes up with that. And then the final point about trying to understand not just whether reps are performing, but also the culture and whether people are happy in the team by measuring the percentage of them hitting quota. So Brandon, thank you so much for your time. That was super insightful. And thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.